Good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning. It is the 8th of May. Leigh-Ann Mole and me to take care of you this morning. Hopefully get your week off to a good start. It's going to be a normal 5-day week. No more of this nonsense of like having days off. Over, finished. Got to get on with our lives. How are you?
I think it's done until September or something. And then maybe, September's our next, is it not?
No, there's June 16th, which is coming up. There's Youth Day, and that'll be, I think it's that's a long weekend as well, but that's still a little while off, so don't get too excited. How are you? What's news?
All good. It's I obviously didn't see you guys last week with it being a pubic holiday.
Yeah.
But I'm partaking in my royal tea this morning.
Oh, look at you getting all it's Charles and Diana. Oh, that's great.
What wasn't meant to be.
Where did you dig that out?
It's my only piece of royal crockery that I have, and I bought it from an antique store about 6-7 years ago. I think I was still blinded by the hopes that it wouldn't work out with Camilla, but I've definitely not changed. I've changed, and I'm not thinking that way anymore. But I was really not that interested in what was going on at the coronation. Were you?
Really? You just took no interest at all? Because I mean, look, I know. I mean, my brother, for example, was completely disinterested.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't care at all, and I get it. I mean, like, you don't have to. Nobody's got a gun to anyone's head saying you have to care about the coronation, you know. And I think for a lot of people, it's just like totally outdated, and like there were these people protesting, saying not my king, and apostrophe king way, like as in fucking way or whatever.
Yeah.
I just it's interesting. I saw a little clip someone sent me of I think it was Piers Morgan saying, well, if you don't like all this stuff, then just take the day off and enjoy it. Don't spoil it for everyone else, which is, I suppose, the way you could look at it. There are also people who, when something like this happens, it just grinds them the wrong way. It's like, our state opening of parliament here in South Africa is like this ridiculous fashion show of people who really shouldn't be wearing anything but burlap sacks because they've got no idea of how to dress.
Got our money
on the worst day, but they're spending our money on stuff like that. So I get it. I mean, like, I feel the same way about that as a lot of people feel about the coronation, but it is kind of an interesting spectacle nonetheless. And for people who are involved and for people who understand the history and the significance of it, it's really interesting, and it's got a long and storied kind of tale. And I went into this a little bit with Pumi last Thursday, so I'm not going to go into it now. But what I would say is that there's a continuity here. And for lots of people who, are interested in tradition and what makes a nation and what kinds of things contribute to the character of a nation, these kinds of things they symbolize a lot. They have a value that isn't all just about kind of, one family or one man getting a crown on his head. It's a lot more than that. It's kind of, you saw how excited the Brits got, right? You would have watched it on TV. Seen these people having these coronation lunches yesterday. I didn't watch much of all of that stuff, obviously. I didn't see anything of the concert. I was bloody exhausted yesterday and couldn't wait to get to bed. But
what had you all exhausted?
No, I think it was just a busy weekend, and I had lots going on.
Okay.
And I mean, I suppose
I'll tell you what, Charles must have been exhausted. He's not young, and that was a very, very full, long day. Not only day, but weeks leading up to it as well. He looked quite tired, I must say. I mean, I know I have friends who had the Corrie on all day. Had it on TV and in the background, and we're listening to it all day. It's one of those things that I like to just see the highlights on social media.
Well, there was apparently a big concert last night, and I mean, I don't really care what happened there. So I'll maybe see a bit of the highlights of that. But like Katy Perry and who else was there? The Take That. I mean, geez, talking about rolling out old tired horses and flogging them. Take That. The people in South Africa excited to be seeing what the Backstreet Boys. So I suppose they're the same people in Britain who would want to watch Take That. But I don't know. Look, it's not everybody's thing. So here are the figures. The Queen's funeral got 29 million viewers.
Mm-hmm.
The World Cup quarterfinal, 21 million viewers. The Coronation, 13 million. So quite a lot less. I would have thought it would be more, but there we go. The numbers are in. Then the Champions League final, 12.6 million. I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the TV show, 12 million.
Yes.
Strictly Come Dancing, 11 million, and the Great British Bake Off, 8 million. So it's still right up there, but 13 million is not the 29 million of the Queen's funeral. So I think a lot more people cared about the Queen's funeral than care about the coronation. I think it's that's so those are the numbers that somebody just sent me now. So there we go. I mean, that's cool. That's interesting. Look,
it's nice to see people who are really still devoted, and it's like watching fans, or like we had all of our collectors on. It's interesting seeing people who are absolutely devoted. And there they are. Lots of South Africans.
I love the memes. I love the memes about like Camilla, the side chick, hang in there, guys. If you're a side chick,
eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's I think that's great. People have a great sense of humor about this stuff, and the British more than anybody else. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, since you were drinking your cup of tea just now, but there it is, something cool, something interesting, something historical, and it fills a gap. It does a job, and it's something much, much older than a lot of the stuff that people now think is really, really important in society. And this may have a place. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe some people are right that it's just outdated bullshit. But there, for the people who are interested, there it is. It's done and dusted. And I hope you had a good weekend. What else did you get up to? Did you not go for you didn't go for a big tea party and spend your whole day with a whole bunch of Brits?
No, I had to do the thing that comes along against once a while is I'm not making sense. The thing that comes along once in a while with family is when somebody moves. So I've been roped into that. It's like a 2-week scenario.
God.
So that's what I was doing.
But hold on. This is the worst thing that people can do, is like rope you in on moving, because moving is so damn difficult. And everybody who suddenly calls, the guy with the bucky or whatever, we've discussed this in the show before.
We have.
We need your help to move a fridge or whatever. This is not help. This is stuff that you need like laborers to help you with. It is tough.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the family member that we're moving is special needs. So we've organized movers to help us with all of that. But this isn't a case of anyone just saying, come for free beer and pizza and wrap my plates. So we really had to get involved.
Where are you putting the special needs person? What kind of a...
She's moving from a family apartment, beautiful garden apartment that we have, which is going to be rented out just up the road to a garden cottage. So, and that's always the frustrating part, is moving a few meters. I've done this before, where you're moving a few meters, but it costs exactly the same when it comes to the moving company. It's all the packing and unpacking.
But, listen, it's still a nightmare to do that stuff. I haven't now moved in a very long time. It's been more than a decade, and I don't see it happening soon. I mean, unless you kind of win the lottery and decide to upgrade hugely, I'm kind of where I am is where I'm going to be for a little while still.
Yeah.
You do get those people who are like, they constantly moving, and not because they got ants in their pants or they're dodging like people who they owe money to. It's because they're constantly changing things, and their families may be expanding. They got more kids. They need more space. They're moving from this place to this place because work changes and they need to move office. So they also have to move house because the office and the house are near to each other or need to be. So there are a lot of people who do that all the time, and I admire them. I admire anybody who can like pack everything up in boxes and get those trucks around. In fact, it's happened to the neighbors that I've got on the one side. We've got new neighbors that moved in, I think, it was probably about 2 months into this year. And I still haven't met them on the one side, but they were in and out in like 2 days. Done.
Yeah. Well, you got to admire the gypsies in that case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they live in a caravan. Put everything in there. You know how little you need, actually.
Exactly. That's it. That's what I do like about moving, is just clearing everything out and realizing how much you haven't used in the last few years.
Right. Do you guys know what happens if Charles and William passes away before George is 18? There's a temporary... No, okay, so that... Wow, okay, so if Charles and William died, then Prince George becomes king, but probably they'll appoint a regent. So it would be... Maybe they'd appoint Camilla or Kate or, someone else in the family. Might even be... who would they put? They'd probably ask Edward to stand in as regent. And then that person would basically, they'd make the decisions for him, but he would be the king, even if he was, how old is he now? What, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. I don't know how old these kids are. But he was carrying the robes, so he was a page boy for the king. Seems to have done a pretty good job. Those kids are so well behaved compared to the average child,
Oh, yeah.
Because they know the cameras are on them the whole time.
Yeah, so they've been primed and groomed from day dot.
Yeah, Shani points out South Africans partook in the thing. Motsi Mabusa, Pretty Yende.
Pretty Yende, I saw that.
So that's very good. My mate says she's not watching an Illuminati reptilian parade, which I thought was hilarious. Reptilian Ruth. Reptilian Ruth. I've changed it from Rebellious Ruth. Dogozo says, I tried catching the coronation, lasted all of 5 minutes. I wasn't interested enough. I'll catch the next one. King Charles really needs to get those fingers checked, says Simon. So here's another picture of them.
Yes, but not that picture. I mean, it's hard not to look at his fingers because there's another protruding digit in that image.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of people with the sausage fingers comments. Very, very funny. I mean, I saw the most terrible picture of like literally 2 packets of sausages that someone had made like a mosaic of the thing, and that's what it looked like. If I saw Cyril or Fikile there, someone was going to catch hands, said Ryan. Yeah, I don't know if we sent anybody, but I saw Jill Biden went to represent America. There were a couple of kings and queens. The king of Lesotho was there.
Yes, that's right. All the kings and queens from Europe were there.
There were a lot of them. Yeah. John Bad Dog says, I grew up in the suburbs, but bought a plot in Benoni. Best move ever. Can't hear neighbors and space for days. Price the same as the suburbs. You're stupid if you stay in complexes and suburbs. Well, maybe not stupid. Maybe you can, that's what you can afford. But yeah, the further you live out of town, the bigger the properties you can get for the same amount of money. But then you have to put up with being out of town. And, sometimes it's being close to things is a lot better than having to deal with commuting in and out the whole time. I mean, I know people who do it every day, and it can be exhausting. If you're sitting in traffic every single day, it's tiring stuff. So for some people, the convenience of being close to where you work is way more important than, some people. Listen, for how many years now, I've known that if I need to get to the office, it's going to take me, especially during peak hour. It's like, set aside a good 45 minutes to an hour if you're lucky. And if there's traffic and there's a problem, it's going to be longer than that. But that's what I've chosen. So I don't complain about it too much. I just have to budget.
I mean, I've also lived very rurally with like the nearest hospital being 2 hours away, that type of setup. And
No, that was when
it's
you were in
all
the
pros and cons. Yeah.
Sure. You
I
learn
mean,
to live
when
with
you
these.
have an allergic reaction like I did,
Who
it's a
was the
little bit hair
woman?
raising.
You see, these are the kinds of questions that are interesting, and I appreciate Carl's. Carl is a real royalist and takes a massive interest in the coronation. He says, "Who was that woman with the huge tits and the blue dress walking ahead of the king?"
No, I did read up on her. She was wearing apparently
Yes.
the most fashionable blue. But who
Mm-hmm.
is she again?
Her name is Penny Mordaunt. She is the
That's right.
Lord President of the Privy Council, and she was holding the sword of state. That was her whole job, and she held that sword the whole time. She was very, very good.
Ages.
Yeah, she's very good. Now I'd like to take her into battle to hold my sword. She's a politician, so a lot of those roles are played, by politicians. It's interesting also, like Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the UK. He made a speech or did a Bible reading. He's a practicing Hindu, and he read a Christian Bible reading at an Anglican service, effectively. So there's lots of stuff going on. Sebastian says Gareth Cliff, king of Belgians, was at the coronation.
Yes.
I saw him. I saw the king of the Belgians, who everybody thinks is my father. I'm his bastard son, but yeah, I did see him. Now, funnily enough, a lot of the European royals arrived not with their wives, but with their heirs. So the King of Holland came along with his daughter, who's going to inherit the Dutch throne from him. Same thing with King Philippe of the Belgians. I think King Philippe of Spain was there with his wife. He was there with his wife, Letizia. But
Letizia.
Letizia and the woman with the sword had Letizia's on display as well. Yeah, so lots of cool things. Hindus essentially recognize Christ through Krishna, says Ancient Ether. Hey, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's pretty, yeah. So lots of fun things to joke about. Princess Anne wore a pirate hat.
She looked amazing. She was like royaling in a big way. She carried it very well.
She couldn't wait to get on that horse at the end.
Yeah, she does. She is a very horsey lady.
Oh yeah, no. Anna's like, "Was he ready for my horse yet?"
That's all she wanted.
Producer Ryan wants to know, Gareth, based on your knowledge of the Queen's coronation, was this accurate over the top? Well, they changed quite a lot. They made it a lot shorter. They made it, they took away a lot of the things that I suppose are a bit anachronistic, and these things have to change with time. Even as someone who likes tradition and is a bit of a purist, there's a lot of stuff here that you have to change because people just don't, they don't have the time or the inclination to know about this stuff like they might have in the 1950s. People have changed. The country's changed. Britain's not what it was. It was an empire still in the 1950s. There was still, there were countries that the Queen ruled directly. And all of that has obviously changed. So I don't think that you can stay the same. I don't think things have to stay the same. And I think that if it does, and it becomes outdated and irrelevant, then that's the fault of the people whose job it is to keep the thing moving. Who was the African king with the umbrella inside? Saw an image of that. Not sure if it's real. There were a couple. There was a king. There was a Ghanaian king there, and there was a king of Lesotho, Letsi, with one of his wives. But I didn't see any other African kings. I just saw those two. I might have missed something though. So if anybody knows, let us know. Talking about heirs, have you watched Seven Kings Must Die? No, but a friend of mine told me a couple of weeks ago to watch that Last Kingdom, which is apparently a really cool series. Maybe I'll watch that since we're talking about all of this stuff.
Is it like a fantasy thing?
It's loosely based on like Anglo-Saxon England about the 900s,
okay.
But it's mostly just a fun show. I demand Charles return the stolen relics that are held by the crown. It's been centuries, and they have no intent in returning my ancestors' pillow.
There was a lot of that online. Sure.
I saw
the EFF actually demanded back.
Yeah, they want the Cullen and diamond. Like, can you imagine what What would the EFF do with the diamonds? Let's just imagine for a second that Charles is such a wop that he decides to give back the Cullinan diamond. So all of them come back. The one that was in his crown, Camilla's crown, the scepter, all of that stuff. Huge big diamond collection. Let's say they all get air freighted over here, land at OR Tambo, and are addressed to the South African public. What do you think we'll do with them? Because I can guarantee you, if the greedy, thieving sons of bitches that we have in politics in this country, from at least two of the parties that we know steal for a living, I wonder what would happen to those diamonds. It wouldn't take long for them to be bought up and end up in someone else's jewelry collection, and for someone in this country to make themselves extremely rich, and for the average South African to never ever see those things again. I mean, we wouldn't. It's not like they'd get them back and then sell them to whoever the highest bidder was, and like give every South African a piece of the pie. Remember when the Cullinan diamond was discovered? We gave it as a gift, as a country. The government of the time gave it away. So what are you going to do? Let the government of this time now just suddenly demand it back? And then what will they do with it? How does this work? No one ever thinks about how it's going to happen. How does this unravel? Can you imagine? Like Cyril ends up with using it as a paperweight or something. I mean, like, how's it going to work?
Yeah. And there's the argument that, you were saying thieving politicians. There's the argument that it's not stealing because it was ours to start with. But when you give it away as a gift, remember in a divorce, if you've given someone an engagement ring and a diamond, they keep it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the law.
Yep. Sorry. You don't get to give. And you also, it's just very rude to take back gifts. Trust me, there's some gifts that I gave people when they're just really ungrateful about them. You give someone a gift and then they go, oh, thanks, or whatever. And you think, I shouldn't have given them that gift. I should have given them something cheap and nasty, right?
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So apparently dozens of women were flown into South Africa to entertain the president of the UAE. And this is when he landed in the Eastern Cape and had that big party?
Yep, that's right.
A whole lot of stories are starting to emerge, everybody. We all were like, oh, there's a big plane coming in and it landed here, and he upgraded Bishu Airport and used it for his party, and then they had this massive thing where he spent like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And now it turns out they also flew not millions, they flew some women in to be.
Yeah, I mean, the Eastern Cape hasn't seen this much action in a while.
No, geez. I mean, the last time we saw this much action in the Eastern Cape was probably Mandela's funeral.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, there are 500 guests there, if you think about it. So it's quite a big party. But I like how the media capitalizes the words dozens of women flown into Mzansi to entertain the UAE president. So they were all selected pre-party. A lot of people were wondering if there were any South Africans in the mix. No, there are not. They're all mainly from Russia.
Oh, right.
And they were selected, obviously, for being, in inverted commas, some of the most beautiful and best in the world.
Were they hoes?
Well, no one's fully classified their jobs. They've put it down as to basically keep the president and some of his dignitaries company and entertain them. The exact extent of their duties isn't clear at this point. So whatever keeping them company means.
And entertaining them. Ooh, I wonder what that means.
But no expense has been spared in making sure that they're comfortable. They're not staying in the exact same location. They're 8 kilometers away from the Royals' accommodation. And they're staying
Are you telling me this is still going on, or was this when it happened? Can't still be going on. Right?
It would have been when it happened. Okay. So they were kept, a couple of kilometers away, and a very, very plush accommodation. But it just made me think. It's interesting that this stuff is still going on. Would you, as a woman, want to be one of these women who was selected to entertain a bunch of men?
I'm sure they were paid very well. I mean, we've all heard these stories of all these Instagram models and these really, really successful women who end up on yachts in the UAE, or living in some expensive apartment in the UAE, and you wonder how they get their money. Well, we know how they get their money. It's not because they've suddenly cracked the code on some kind of intelligence app, or they're able to use AI to suddenly become tremendously successful stock traders, or they've hit it big and invented something. No, they're basically expensive prostitutes. That's what they are. And I'm not being rude about this. I'm not being mean. That's just what they are. There's only one thing you can call them, and they are. They listen. You're allowed to capitalize on whatever your assets might be. I have no doubt that there are your assets. I have no doubt that there are a lot of South African women who are among those. And you hear these horrible stories about these women who go over there and they subject themselves to all kinds of, twisted and perverse men who want to do horrible things to them. And if the money's good enough, why shouldn't they?
Yeah, it's like the start of any of these TV series that we watch, these crime and investigation series, where there's been a murder on a yacht, and there are lots of girls in sequin dresses running around,
right,
and being interviewed, and a lot of them are happy to be there. They wanted to be there.
If you were suddenly offered, I don't know, a couple of 100,000, maybe a couple of million, because these guys, money's no issue.
Yeah,
right?
That's it.
And you were asked to go and just keep a bunch of these rich Arab men from the UAE company at some party, you'd go like, well, why not? And if you knew what you were in for, and let's say it included making yourself available for any of their sexual advances, blah, 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 you just have to decide if it's worth your while or not. And some people would say yes, and some people would say no. Right?
Yeah, I think I might, if I was in that position, if I was sort of in my early 20s, Russian and really hot, I might consider doing it as an experiment or as an experience. But
yeah,
I
do love these girls who are like posting stuff on their social media of like, they've launched a bikini range that you can never find anywhere to buy, and they live in a $10 million apartment, and they're buying Gucci stuff all the time, but you're not sure where it all comes from. Well, you can pretty much guess where it comes from. So yeah, let's not mess around, girls. We know where that money's coming from.
Yeah,
I mean, this is also true. This is true for men who will take up jobs sometimes that men are never going to be paid what women will. But like a lot of guys will do work for terrible people, whether it's being a mercenary. Let's say someone says to you, I need you to go and fight in some godforsaken country because there's a diamond mine there that I own, and you've got to protect it. And we'll pay you, $5 million a month to go and protect this gold mine or this diamond mine. You'd do it. If you were a guy, you were trained, let's say you were trained in weapons. It's the same thing as a girl who's offered lots of money. Yeah, a hitman, all this kind of thing. You've just got to decide what your price is.
Yeah.
If celebs are willing to suck in Harvey Weinstein, sure ain't no problem for Russian women with a little sucking, and the UAE ones are halal.
Oh my God.
This is what we're talking about, and we got to stop like bullshitting each other. And I don't have a whole lot of respect for people who try to hide this stuff, because people are going to find out anyway. There was that famous South African, I can't remember who it is now, but she apparently had like a relationship or an affair with some guy who was like a Lebanese president. He ended up giving her, we spoke about this, ended up giving her a settlement of some huge amount of money. And then the only reason we found out was because the South African tax authorities tried to get their hands on it. And it went to court. And there was this big court case because this guy had a relationship with this woman. She wasn't a prostitute. He was actually her boyfriend. And he just had tons and tons of money and gave her this massive cash payout.
I think she won the case.
She won the case against SARS, was it?
Yeah. She won the case because it was again, a gift.
Yeah, but people find out about this stuff. So who are we trying to kid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, so we got to talk about a whole lot of things here. So first of all, who is Jock Zonfrillo as? Because I don't know who this is. Jock Zonfrillo. I think we spoke about.
If you're the biggest of the Masterchef series to watch is Masterchef Australia. So it's something that I've watched for, almost since the beginning. I think it's a really good series. It's right up there in terms of reality shows. And there were always the three judges that we knew before, and then in 2021, three new judges took over, right? And one of them being Melissa Leigh-Ann, who's a food critic, who's absolutely fantastic. Andy Allen, who is a former contestant and now a chef in his own right. And then Jock Zonfrillo joined.
I'm saying right, but I have no idea who these people are that you're talking about. And I still like Jock Zonfrillo. Doesn't it sound like a real name to me? It's like, you know,
well,
you made it up. You were drunk and you were meant to say like Jack and his girlfriend.
Like it.
No, and his girlfriend Zara. This is the guy, by the way, if you've never seen him before, because I hadn't. I've never watched MasterChef in my life, but this is the dude, apparently. Jock Zonfrillo.
So the name he's a judge and mentor. He is Scottish Italian. So Jock
was Leigh-Ann.
Jock is the Scottish side, and Zonfrillo being the Italian. And I think what's really engaging about him and why people have been so shocked by his death is that he is really he's got an amazing life story. He started working in kitchens in Glasgow when he was 12.
Please stop referring to him in the present tense.
And he I said started. He started working when he was 12. And in Glasgow at the time, when he was a teenager, there was a crazy heroin epidemic. A lot of the teenagers there were getting involved in that, and he became an addict as a teenager. And eventually he started working at some really prestigious restaurants as a chef.
As an addict?
As an addicted chef. And had some help from people along the way. And then decided that was it. He took his last hit of heroin, got onto a plane, went to Melbourne, never touched the stuff again, became one of the best chefs, one of the top chefs in the world, opening restaurants in Melbourne. Just really inspirational, helping so many people along the way, and then becoming this amazing mentor. He was very, very charming. And very empathetic, and just a really nice guy to watch on TV. So a lot of people kind of got really attached to him. But yes, he's 46, was 46, Gareth. And last week at 2:00 in the morning, his wife, who was in Rome at the time, they were there on holiday together, and he'd flown back down to Melbourne for press stuff. The show was due to be premiered that night, the Monday night. And on Monday morning at 2:00 in the morning, the police found him dead in his hotel room. Only 46 years old. To some young people, that might sound old, but it's not.
Wow. What happened?
And it was just... So, it takes a while for these things for the coroner to, finish up the autopsy. So it's all natural causes, because there was nothing to suggest otherwise. But then the rumors start coming out, the fact that he used to be a heroin addict in his teenage years comes up, but that there's nothing of the sort to indicate that. He also suffered from bowel cancer in silence. He would take his treatments when they weren't filming.
Oh, wow.
But, it could have been anything like a stroke or a heart attack. And it's up to the family to find out whether they want to tell us or not. But the big thing was that this show, with its absolute success and so many millions of Australian dollars worth of sponsors, was due to everything was rolling. I mean, even on his own Instagram, he had teasers and snippets for the show that was coming up in 12 hours' time. And the big decision was, now what do we do as a TV network? So they postponed it for a week and let the family decide. And obviously his wife, he's got 2 tiny kids with her, and then 2 adult kids from other marriages. But they decided he would want it to go ahead. And so they premiered last night, Sunday night.
Can you imagine if she was a real bitch and she's like, no, we don't want the show to go ahead. We must cancel the show. And then everybody's like, oh, but we really like to see people being timed with the pasta dish. And we really want to watch this, and you're ruining our fun. And I have to stop the stupid show because of the family, because they asked them. They shouldn't ask. What has the family got to do with it? The show must go on.
I don't know. I think a lot of people who were fans of his would understand the sensitivity. It's, myself being one of them, it would have been quite difficult to watch now that we know. And, that they had to go through the show and edit everything. They even changed the theme, because the theme was secrets and surprises. So they had to change that very quickly. That's been eliminated. But
what are we going to do with the soup dish now that Jock is gone?
Yeah, it's the cooking show is like only half of it, really. There's a lot more involved in it. It's the mentorship and all the rest of it. But yeah, even Gordon Ramsay. So last night, Sunday night, they rolled out a tribute to Jock first, and Gordon Ramsay actually broke down. I've never seen Gordon Ramsay cry, but he was sobbing. He was absolutely in pieces.
Okay.
And all the people who mentored him. Jamie Oliver is a 4th judge on the show this year. And I mean, these guys spend 16 hours a day together for months filming.
Look, it's so weird to me, because I've obviously never watched this. I couldn't care less about Master. This is like when those people say, oh, well, I didn't watch the Coronation, I don't care about it. So I'm in that position when it comes to Masterchef. I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
I don't care about cooking shows. I've never watched one. It's just, to me, it's such a waste of time, this stuff. But I get it. And I think what's shocking for people is that someone who's there in your house every week on your TV is suddenly not there anymore. And they're not old, or you don't know that they're not sick or whatever. I mean, you said this guy had bowel cancer, and he was keeping quiet about it and didn't want people to know. And I mean, maybe, it's just TikTok. And then when you open your eyes, it's gone. And like, it upsets people because their show suddenly isn't there, or not the way that they want it to be.
It's weird. And I mean, I really got a shock from it, and I felt sick about it. And I've never felt that about someone who's died, whether they've been a politician, a royal family member, a celebrity, a rock star, a sportsman. I mean, I don't know if there's been anyone that you know of that you kind of really felt for when they died and felt for their families. So I was quite surprised by my own reaction.
Yeah, I'm sure there was. I just can't think of them now. But yeah, listen. So you were obviously quite upset about this because you're a big MasterChef fan, because you've been talking about him for a bit now.
I did. I mean, I didn't cry, but I've been upset about it. I'm getting over it. But it's just an interesting phenomenon. And one woman actually wrote in and said, they had planned their viewing party, as with these reality series, there are viewing parties, with her 2 little daughters who were like 12 and 9 or something. And the one found on her phone a story of what had happened. And she said, Mommy, Jock's dead. And her mom knew immediately who that was, and how they've had to like explain the grieving process and all of that.
If only we could find another person who could cook. This is going to be so impossible, because cooking is so difficult that no one on earth can do except this guy. What are we going to do? Oh, I'm so frustrated. How am I gonna
It's
know how
more
to
about their personality because they don't really cook in it.
how am I gonna work out that chicken a la king recipe without Jock on TV? Oh,
You really are simplifying it, but you're also trying to do it to get a dig at me.
yes. You figured me out. Damn it. I used to be able to piss you off. I can't do it anymore. All right. Listen, Congo Chris mentioned this, and I think this is really interesting and relevant because everyone in South Africa is furious at the amount of load shedding we've had in the last while.
Oh.
It's been absolutely astonishing. I mean, the fact that Eskom is even able to put out like 5 megawatts of power every fucking day is a miracle because these guys have completely screwed things up. And Congo Chris says the army is going to be deployed rather to the power stations this week to help prevent sabotage because clearly that's what's going on. So I just want to know why it's taken so long. Why did it take so long for the army to be deployed to sort out our power stations? Surely this is something they could have started doing last year already.
They're supposed to be used to emergencies, right?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be able to respond within a few hours.
Correct. It's just unbelievable. So if you were dealing with power failures and load shedding and a complete breakdown of the grid over the last couple of days, and everybody felt it, everybody in South Africa is feeling it, even if you have a generator, you have solar, you have an inverter or whatever, because these periods are now so long that your power system can't keep up. Even your backup of backup can't keep up. So all of us are dealing with this, and it is very, very frustrating. Don't you think?
Hugely. I'm in the very fortunate position of being on a property that has solar power. That's only been in the past month though, but that's when things have been really bad.
Even that can run out. You know, if you don't
it
have
can, depending on what you've got. Yeah.
Correct. So for a lot of people, it's just a total disaster. And I'm not surprised. I don't know. What stage are we at, Leigh-Ann?
It flits between like 4 and 6, but like someone in the comments said, we're at stage puss. But yeah, I would need to check.
Yeah, it sounds to me like stage puss. I think that's where we are.
Stage 4 starts, stage 6 since 15 hours ago.
No,
that's
stage 6. Yeah. Ryan says we're at stage 6 until further notice, producer Ryan. So that's great news. All right, everybody. Listen, I've got much, much more important things to talk about with Dr. Hanan. And I think this is something that's come up a lot whenever we talk about the story of Charles and Camilla. And we're not going to talk about the coronation or that they are king and queen now, but we're going to talk about their relationship. And I wanted to ask Dr. Hanan about this because he, of course, is our own live-in shrink. He's also a renowned psychologist, head of the Anxiety and Trauma Clinic in Johannesburg, and a regular contributor to the show. How's it, Dr. Hanan? How are you?
I'm doing great. How's it going, guys?
Awesome. So listen, there were a lot of funny memes about Camilla being the side chick and all the other side chicks just to have to hang in there because eventually they'll get the chance to be crowned queen. But I've never seen her as the side chick. I think, there's that famous picture of Charles and Camilla with their names scratched into the tree. And I often think that was real love. And that was before Diana even came onto the scene. And now finally, Charles has got what he always wanted, to have her by his side as his queen and also as his wife. They've been married for 18 years now. People hated Camilla in the beginning because they loved Diana, because people love a fairy tale. But the reality is that sometimes love isn't the fairy tale. Sometimes love is actually just consistency, companionship, friendship. And it's not these Hollywood or Disney displays of like what princesses and, true love and Sleeping Beauty being woken by a kiss and all that bullshit. That's not what real love is. And if people think that's real love, it's usually because they're childish and stupid. Real love doesn't always look like,
a fairy tale.
Yeah, a fairy tale. It sometimes looks kind of boring, but can be relied upon. It sometimes looks like two people who really trust and love and care for each other. And it's not about what the rest of us think or see. Do you agree?
For sure. I think the number one comment that I get in my practice between couples is, how come our relationship isn't like ... And they quote their neighbors or their best friends or some couple in the movies. And the reality is relationships are not fairy tales. If you had to really uncover and scratch beneath the veneer of what it looks like, relationships are really hard work. There's incredible value in relationships, but they're hard work. And I've always said that in life, value and stress are married. Value and stress are married. You can't detangle the two. And the more value you accumulate in life, the more stress you accumulate in life. And if somebody had to really say to me, Hanan, how do I eliminate stress? Well, the real answer is, well, eliminate everything that you value. Because when you accumulate things,
if you don't want to be stressed, just don't care about anything.
Exactly. But then the cost of that is that you get depressed. So you have no choice but to accumulate value, and that comes with stress. So I always say to people, yes, listen, and it shouldn't be called different. Value should be called stress, and stress should be called value. It's how you manage it that makes the difference between healthy and unhealthy. And relationships are no different. You enter into different phases as you grow older. And the truth is, the skill set that you learned in phase 1 of your relationship does not apply to phase 2 of your relationship. It's like learning to survive in the jungle and then moving to the desert and thinking you can take the same strategies from the jungle to the desert. It is different. And you got to relearn as you adjust to different phases in order to make it better. But listen, as you said, you scratch beneath the veneer. It looks quite ugly, but beneath the veneer or deep, a couple of levels deeper, it's really meaningful for sure.
All right. So, Doc, I think another part of this that people are very uncomfortable to talk about, and is even people who are in relationships and have, like, I've been to a couple of fairy tale weddings where I saw, people I've really known for a long time, people who are deeply in love. You see them, and there's just this moment of absolute ecstasy and love where everybody around them is gathered to see how their relationship kicks off once they're married. There's lots of hugs and kisses and excitement and this outflow of emotion, and then about 4 or 5 years down the line, it all changes very dramatically. It becomes boring. It becomes mundane. It becomes about the consistency rather than anything else. And the relationships that survive are sometimes not the ones that put on a good show. Am I right?
Yeah. So I think you're overly optimistic. You say 4 or 5 years, the relationship becomes boring. I think it's 4 or 5 weeks later.
Yeah, right.
That's the reality. That's the reality. The moment you get used to something and it becomes part of your routine, it becomes boring and monotonous. And then we won't need to go on adventures. And relationships is all about creating new adventures so that it becomes fresh. But always the starting point. Always the starting point. When I see couples, the first question that I ask them is, how much are you willing to make this work? How much are you willing to put to make this work? What is your will to make this work? And if couples are like, yeah, but, or I'm only going to do it if he does this, I'm only going to do that if she does that, that is the last session I see them. I will not see them again, because there has to be an incredible will to work through a hardship in order to make a relationship work, because relationships are not easy. I want to share a quick story with you in terms of will. I actually heard it a couple of weeks ago from a patient of mine. This is a true story of a bus driver who was bussed by the cops for driving. He could only take 32 people on his bus, and he was bussed with 70 people on his bus by the cops. Yeah. And the cops stop him there. He goes to court, and the judge says, how come you had 70 people when you only allowed 32? And this is a true story. He goes, I never had 70 people. I only had 32. And the judge says, well, you were bussed for 70. Well, says the cop was wrong. And he actually challenged the judge to come outside and try to pack his bus with more than 32 people. And the judge takes him up on the offer. So they go outside and they pack 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and they're only able to squeeze in 32. So he's acquitted. He's able to get off. And at the end of the case, the judge says to him, tell me, buddy, between you and I, how did you get 72? How did you do it? How did you get 70 people on the bus? And the bus driver says, the difference between my 70 and yours 32 is my 70 really wanted to get on the bus. And I love the story because when there's a will, there's a way. And if you want to make something work, you will make it work. So with Camilla story, or the royal story, you know, the Camilla Gate where they were bust having
phone sex.
Yeah, right. And there's many reasons why it shouldn't work, many reasons. But where there's a will, there's a way. And that's always the starting point. It's not the whole story, but there must be a will to make it work for sure as a starting point.
You know, it's also, I think, I'm looking at some of the comments here and people are talking about like how, you know, Camilla might not have been as pretty as Princess Diana was and all that stuff. But those are the superficial things. And, you know, who can explain why love works a certain way for some people? Thank God we all have different tastes, right? I mean, there isn't one person who is by far the most beautiful woman in the world. There isn't one person who everybody thinks is the hottest thing that ever existed. But there are some similarities between, you know, the people that everybody finds attractive and the people that everybody doesn't. But for some people, it's not about that at all. It's the personality. It's the fact that they're supportive, the fact that they make you smile or make you laugh. Maybe it's the fact
it's an X factor. It's a special thing that you can't explain sometimes.
But this idea that you know, and I think Hollywood and Disney have a lot to do with this, is they've given us an idea of what these things should look like. And then when they don't work out that way for all of us, we start to think we've done something wrong.
Right. But Gareth and let me ask you this. Have you ever spoken to somebody that's a 5 out of 10, and the moment they open their mouths, within 2 minutes, they turn into a 9? Or the other way around, you speak to a 10 out of 10, they open their mouths, and within 2 seconds, they turn into a 1. You can't see them because they're not attractive. I mean, it happens all the time, for sure. I mean, the reality is that, I mean, apart from wanting to have a short-term relationship or a one-night stand, which looks obviously takes priority, or that physical attraction, if you're looking to maintain a camp with someone, it's way more than looks and education. Yeah. And the way that they use their words. And, you know, like nothing irritates me more when people misspell words in text. That's not attractive to me. To somebody else, that's okay. But to me, it's not attractive. You can take a 10 where they misspell there and there and there and they are. That immediately drops them down to a 2 for me. So the reality, that's the reality. And the truth is that attraction is not just the way that they look. It's the education, how they speak to their mother, how they speak to your mother, how they speak to your siblings, how they treat you when you're down, how do they treat you when you're up, how do they treat you when you wake up in a bad mood, how do they treat you when you wake up in the best mood. Those are all contribute to attraction if you're looking to build camp with somebody for the long run.
Yeah. I mean, ain't that the truth? You don't know. You look at some people's relationships and you think, how can those two hideously ugly people want to be with each other? And then similarly, you know, you sometimes see a guy and he's revolting, and then he's with this beautiful girl, and you think, well, he must have money. That's always the expectation we jump to. Or you see like this couple, and they're both hideous, and it's ugly to watch, and it makes you but they really love each other, and you can just see the way they hold hands, the way they smile and laugh at each other, and you think they've been together for like 30 years. How do these people get that right? It's different. Different strokes for different folks.
Completely. You don't know what's attractive to the one person or what's attracted to the one person to another. But listen, and this is a very important point, guys. Don't fall for what it looks like, or don't fall for what social media says or shows you in terms of a couple. You know, I've got a couple that the wife hates the husband so much that she despises the child because the child looks like the husband. That's how much she hates the husband. But on Facebook, you would not believe the messages. My incredible husband, you're the rock of my life. I couldn't be happier. And that's what people see. And they think their relationship is bliss and incredible and perfect fairy tale. But behind the scenes, it's very different.
That is so true. People also living their own fantasy in their head. And then when the reality strikes, it's like, ooh, this is not what I asked for.
Completely.
All right. I love it. Don't believe everything people present. And don't believe everything you see on social media either. That's bound to make you unhappy.
Jeez,
thanks, Jock. Always good to see you, and especially on a Monday to start our week properly.
Stay warm, guys.
Cool. Yeah, it's you can feel the weather's changing. Winter's definitely here. Keenan says, "Ooh, two fugly people." Huh.
Yeah. Oh no.
Cool.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at the beautiful children they can produce.
Well, yeah, that sometimes happens, right? Vanessa says, your twin flame is often someone who doesn't look anything like you expected. Instead, they share your desire to make life better. Yeah, it's the stuff that people are really attracted to is sometimes not the stuff that they think they're attracted to. It's like I've often met, people who I thought this person is truly one of the ugliest people I've ever seen. But after talking to them for a little bit, even a superficial asshole like me can start to appreciate, like, oh wow, they really are smart or funny or interesting, or they have, such an overwhelming personality. And then you kind of feel like an asshole afterwards because you're like, wow, I really judged that book by its cover, and I was so wrong. It happens.
Yeah,
I mean, very,
absolutely.
very rarely, because mostly ugly people are also dreadful on the inside.
Yeah, of course.
But you know how it goes. All right, we'll be back in a moment with a whole lot more. CliffCentral.com, Monday morning. Up you get, up and at 'em. Let's get your Monday started properly. You know what to do. Make sure you don't go away.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
So we're talking about the art of counterfeiting.
Is a replica a fake? And
I have a theory to that, actually, as to what makes it fake. So I think if you're stealing intellectual property,
yes,
then it becomes
fake.
A fake.
Yes.
Whereas if you imitating with your own name and your own
your own brand, you're not trying to call a Lamborghini Hurricane a Lamborghini Hurricane.
Exactly. Yeah, you calling it
something else.
A Shamborghini.
A Shamborghini.
A tsunami or something. I don't know.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It is Monday morning. We are ready to go. Let's see what's happening. And you can get hold of us in the comments section here on the YouTubes. Jaco will be on tomorrow morning, by the way. We just played an ad for his show Unbundled. He will be joining us tomorrow. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Exciting. Yay. Isn't that exciting, Leigh-Ann? Isn't that the best?
You are one of those people who can talk all the way up until they sneeze. I've got to like stop what I'm doing and really concentrate.
Is that a skill that you wish you had? Is that the one that was missing from your arsenal of skills?
Yeah, I wish I could just carry on like that, but I've got to stop everything and write, really. Otherwise, I could lose it.
I'll tell you what I have to do. I have to get to gym this week. I have to catch up on some sleep. I have to be healthy. I ate so much ridiculously stupid food over the weekend. Just I feel really, really like I let myself down horribly. I've basically I became a hideous monster over the weekend.
Oh dear.
Hideous monster. So I've got to fix all of that this week. I'm going to make sure I get straight back into it. Train hard, eat properly, drink lots of water, get decent amounts of sleep. That's what I'm doing. That's my whole plan for, this week, next week, and the week after. In fact, pretty much the whole of May.
Very good.
Well, I think those are very attainable goals. I mean, getting sleep, that's not a very difficult goal. For God's sake, that's what lazy people do extremely well. So I think I'll get that.
If that was the number one goal, that would be great.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm finished with eating nonsense. I'm actually going to go through my kitchen and just throw a whole bunch of crap away that I know is a temptation. And I'm not going to eat horrible things, but I'm not going to eat any of the usual snacky stuff that gets in the way of what you're trying to do when you're trying to get into shape. And I will be disciplined. I can do this. I've done it before.
Yeah. It's not that hard to do now because of food being so bloody expensive. I think a lot of people are just kind of buying what they can to get by.
Let me tell you, I went to the shops on what was it, Wednesday last week. I bought like 3 bags of groceries. That's 3 packets. I could carry it to the car. I didn't need a trolley. 3 packets, and it cost me over 1,500 rand. I was like, what?
I was going to say 1.5.
What did I walk out of there with, like gold bars? Like, how did this cost so much? And it wasn't even expensive. It's not like I went to, Woolworths and bought, fantastic confectionery.
No, but Woolworths is no longer expensive. It's about if you're talking stores from the most expensive to the least expensive for a trolley of identical items, Woolworths is about 4th or 5th most expensive.
Really? Who's the most expensive?
Spar. Spar's at the top. Second place is Checkers. 3rd is Pick and Pay. 4th, I think, is Woolworths. 5th is Food Lovers Market. Yeah, no, Woolworths have completely changed their branding, and it pissed me off at one stage because we were having an argument about a family member who, somebody said, oh, well, she shops at Woolworths and she shouldn't because she can't afford it. And I wanted to say, have you been to Woolworths lately? It's a lot cheaper. If I'm now in a shop and I think, should I get something like Handy Andy or washing powder from here? I know it's going to be cheaper at Woolworths. And when Woolworths has a special, they really do have a special. And there are now these everyday value items. So I'm certainly not trying to sing their praises, but they've changed their marketing completely and their strategy.
Well, okay, good for them. I didn't know that. I assumed they were just still expensive.
No.
And I would never have guessed in a million years. If you've done the comparison, good for you. This is why we like having you on the show. You do these things. I would never have guessed that Spar would be more expensive than Woolworths.
At the moment, it is. It changes every month. You can follow certain platforms that give you this information, but consistently for the last 6 months, Woolworths has been outperforming the others.
All right. Well, luckily I'm not a foodie, and so it's going to be a lot easier for me than it would for most people. But then pretty much through the whole of May, all I do is just eat soup. So that's my plan. That's what I'm going to do. Right. So we're going to do something fun this morning because Anthea Gardner is going to be joining us. We haven't spoken to Anthea for ages. She will be with us. We're going to talk a little bit about money, but we're also going to just do a general catch up with Anthea and find out what she's been up to. So I'm looking forward to seeing her again on the show in a short while. you can get hold of us in the comments section. And I'm also, I don't think I have the phone connected for phone calls today, but we'll see if we can get that working as well. Okay, so Spa has always been expensive here in the Netherlands. It's the most expensive store, says MM. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't even know they had Spa in the Netherlands. Sanele says that's on the branded items, maybe. Not really what's expensive at Woolies. It's more the Woolworths brand items that are pricier. That's true about the specials, though. See, we're uncovering stuff. I didn't know any of this. Ask an innocent question and look what you get. Proper intel. Okay. So a couple of things in the news that people wanted to talk about this morning. Apparently, Cyril has called for urgent attention to aid in resolving a conflict in the DRC and Sudan. So this is coming from our president, who can't even stop sabotage at our power plants, but he's worried about the DRC and Sudan. So he made this comment over the weekend and said that he reckons that all of this unrest that is happening in Sudan and happening in the DRC needs to be resolved. I don't know what he wants to happen, or if he thinks we're going to, as a country, be able to afford to send army or, military support of any kind to these places. But I don't think we can afford it. I mean, can we help? I don't think we can help.
We're very busy with problems of our own.
No, I mean, someone made the comment earlier because we were talking about how the military are being deployed to try and help stop sabotage at the power stations. And somebody in the comments, I can't remember who it was, said, but these guys don't know what they're doing. I think it was Angus. He said, how are they going to identify how this even happens, the sabotage? Yeah, he says, I'd love to know how the army will manage to stop sabotage when they have no clue of how power stations work and that most sabotage is internal, i.e. rocks and coal or oil seals not properly tight. That's exactly right. I mean, our army are not the smartest people in the world. They're not the sharpest tools in the shed, if you don't mind my saying. So I don't know how that's going to work. But there's Cyril saying, we would love people to stop fighting in the DRC and Sudan. Like, come on, dude. How about we just focus on what we can do here?
Yeah.
Which you're not even doing properly. Anyway, apparently courts in South Africa have exempted schools and hospitals from load shedding. Did you know about this?
Yeah, I saw some rumblings, but I saw that they also said it was impossible.
Yeah, so I've known, and I think a lot of us have known that hospitals in particular don't get load shed or shouldn't technically get load shedding. But there is a catch. So Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, who's still there, even though he's useless as can be, said we must take all reasonable steps within 60 days to prevent interruption of electricity supply due to rotational blackouts implemented by the state-owned utility Eskom, according to a ruling by 3 judges from a court in Pretoria. In cases where buildings or sites cannot be isolated from the grid to exempt them from so-called load shedding, the minister must make arrangements for alternative energy supplies, such as generators. Now, that's fine for a court to say, but how are they going to do it? So apparently, labor unions, opposition parties, civil society took the government to court in this case. They included demands for exemptions for small businesses and for agriculture and electricity tariff increases to be suspended. Eskom has carried out power cuts all but one day this year. We've had load shedding every day of this year, except for one day. Earlier this year.
And that was because the EFF stopped load shedding for that day.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Yeah, right. They want credit for that. But you remember when the former Eskom CEO, Andre de Ruyter, warned if the applicants succeed in having the blackouts interdicted, the utility would need to halt essential maintenance that would make the situation worse. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's fine for us to imagine a world where we don't have to have schools and hospitals load shed, but it's not going to happen because it's impossible. I mean, they don't, as Nina Hastie said in that video that I loved at the end of last year, there is no electricity. There just isn't any electricity. That's what we got. We sometimes don't get load shed in Hart Bay because of the shit in the seas. We don't want to end up like Durban with poo in the sea. Is that really a thing, Gray?
Sure.
Wow. Poo in the sea? How does that relate to load shedding?
Maybe the sewage is controlled by
Don't know.
Electricity, perhaps? I'm not sure.
Look, it doesn't help. We don't have enough power for everybody. That's the whole issue. I mean, if we just move power from here to there and there'd be enough for there than there was for here, then it would be easy. But we don't. We just don't have enough. We've got like a little bit of electricity for a whole country. It's not going to work. Our own Simply says there is a guy on TikTok who refuses to cut his hair until we have 1 week without load shedding, and he's starting to look homeless.
I've seen him, yeah.
Have you seen him?
Yeah, I saw him. I saw the video of him stating that this is what he was going to do, and he had short hair at the time.
Oh
boy!
Well, he's never going to get to cut his hair.
Yeah,
because we're never going to have power again on for a whole week without any issues. It's got really, really bad. Okay, so here's an interesting story. I always wonder about how they do this. So they've got this situation where apparently a whale beached itself and then died, right? And this happens often. And I think this was in Yorkshire in England. It died on Tuesday. The huge carcass has become a macabre tourist attraction. So people are now like gathering around this. I'll show you a picture of a bunch of people, and you'll see how enormous this whale is by comparison. But people are starting to gather around, and contractors are now trying to figure out a way to get rid of the carcass. So it's 17 meters long. Let me just put this picture up, and you can see what the hell I'm talking about, because it's not a small whale. I mean, whales are not small, full stop, but this is quite enormous, and people are now gathering around it. But obviously, it's starting to get a bit smelly, as you can imagine. You know? So this is the picture of. Look at how big a person is compared to this carcass. It's really right. So that's huge. So apparently, what is happening is they're trying to figure out a way of now getting rid of this without having to cut it up. Because if you cut it up, obviously you can then take the pieces away and throw them into the sea or use it as.
Or if you blow it up.
They blow it up. Sometimes they blow these things up, right?
Mm.
It's 30 tons. And apparently it died, as I said, on Tuesday. The carcass has become a place where people come. They want to take selfies with it, blah, blah, blah. There are people who are concerned that the marine mammal would have to be dissected to remove it from the beach. But some people are trying to remove it whole. They said over the next couple of days, we will work with our contractors in an attempt to move the whale away from the beach. But it's so heavy that it's not like you could just pull it away. You know, you could attach it to a tractor and just pull it away.
They sometimes do put them on trucks and take them to another location.
Maybe they must just tell people to get the hell away and then blow it up. That's what they do. They've done before. And then birds will eat bits and pieces, and other animals will come from the sea and pick up little bits and pieces. I mean, kind of recycle the stuff.
Wow. I know that there are some like serious hazards at having a whale carcass just ecologically disappear on the beach. I don't think it's something that you can do when there's a human population around. I'll try and look it up.
This is what I've said to friends of mine who like dating fat girls. It's exactly the same problem. Exactly.
Oh my God. Gareth, come on. Jesus.
If they weigh more than 100 kilograms, you just got to, you got to blow them up with dynamite. That's the only way to get rid of them.
So the latest is saying that they have been able to remove the carcass in an operation described as the largest of its kind.
Oh, is this an update?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to see exactly.
Carl says, they must ask Adele for advice. Didn't she get rid of a whale? She did. I mean, look at how thin Adele is now. She could probably help.
So the council managed to move the body whole after concerns that it would have been dissected. So they used diggers with tracks and other heavy lifting equipment to pick up and moved it onto a large flatbed truck. That's what they do sometimes.
Nice.
What was that? Occasionally these whales become the target of thieves wanting to benefit from the illegal trade in body parts of protected species.
Wow.
Oh,
Hmm.
that was
Imagine
the case
that.
in 2020 in
That's your
North
business.
Yorkshire.
You steal like the body parts of dead whales. That's your business. Imagine that's what you wake up in the morning. You're like, okay, honey, I'm going to work. All right, don't work too hard. No, don't worry. I've just got to steal the body parts of 3 dead whales, but I'll be back by supper time. Have a
Like
good
in
day.
this
Smelling
case,
of whale.
3 years ago, they took the jaw bones of a pod of sperm whales for like trading in body parts.
Oh wow, so big money, huh? This is what people do for money. The jawbones of a pod of sperm whales. Sounds great.
Well, I mean, in parts of Africa, we do that with humans, you know. And and there's also the trade of hearts and livers and kidneys in South America.
I think what we're learning here is that there are some jobs that are really, really shit. Man, you have to harvest this stuff from a dead whale. You know how that smells. So I'm not going to complain about my job ever again. I'm just going to remember the people who have to harvest whale body parts and go, okay.
Yeah.
Cunning Stunt has a problem with me. Cunning Stunt says, Gareth, you remind me of my father with the fat jokes. The way you find yourself so funny is funny. Okay, well, I have never heard a fat joke that I didn't enjoy. So yes, okay, I'm guilty as charged. Hit me with it. It's absolutely fine. Just by the way, there was a meme going around the other day of like Adele laughing. She has like the most cackly, like loud,
she's got a big laugh.
I love it. I think it's the best. Yeah, you know, as someone who's very critical of myself and other people, I thought I'd probably hate Adele's laugh, but I love it. It's so real. She's so, you can just tell like when she laughs at something, it's damn funny, and she finds it massively. She's not one of those people who goes, she's like,
no, definitely not.
She cackles. I love her.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good. Sanella says, good for Adele. Hope her music also lost weight and is less heavy and depressing now. Well,
I wonder if Sanele refers to her as Adele.
Adele, yeah, I think it's called Adele. If you called Sanella, that's what you have to call it. Have you seen the price of whale vomit? They use it in perfume. It's more expensive than gold. I think it's sperm whales. Isn't that ambergris? Yeah, that's what we spoke about the other day.
That and then the fat, of course, is used for soaps and things.
There we go. This morning when you're having your shower, washing yourself with whale fat, just think about how important that industry is. I mean, I don't think they use it too much for soap now, Leigh-Ann. Maybe once back in the 1700s.
I think they still do. And I was actually watching, you know, that show QI. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
They were saying in one recent show, they were saying that I'm talking natural fat to muscle ratio in humans. Humans carry the most percentage of fat compared to any other animal except a whale. When you look at the percentage, comparing percentages. But
I'm going to hold out on the fat jokes on this one. I'm just going to quietly mind my own business because I was reprimanded earlier by Cunning Stunt. So I'm just going to shut up because I had a whole flowering of fat jokes in my head at that moment. But I'm going to hold back. I'm going to be adult about this and not say anything about what you've just said, Leigh-Ann.
So that's why. And like Tracy's saying as well, some of the blubber is used in lipsticks. There we go. Lipstick says Corin as well.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay. I listen. We are so ingenious humans. We find ways to make use of all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure that this whale that's on the beach there, they'll find something to do with it. They just see the problem is also people are only animal activists and animal rights activists if you actually do the violent stuff in front of them. So if they see you shooting the animal in front of them or they see you blowing it up, then they've got all kinds of problems with it. You take it into a huge big shed and do it where they can't see it, and then they're fine with it. And then they'll go and buy the lipstick. Or you
Yeah,
slaughter
it's the same.
slaughter
Yeah,
the abattoir, and they don't complain when they're buying the steak.
Yeah, when the steak's served to you at a restaurant, you aren't thinking of it being in a field, being slaughtered.
No, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that there's a lot going on that people are kind of not in a hurry to admit that it's getting chillier. I mentioned this morning. Yesterday, I think was 25 degrees. Today, they say it's going to be 18. So that's quite a plunge. And I don't think we're going to have any warm weather for a short while. I wore my T-shirt bravely this morning, thinking it'll be the last time for a long time. I'm going to.
It looks. I thought you. As soon as I saw you, I thought, "Oh, that's brave." I've got 2 jerseys on, but Joburg's definitely getting a taste of winter Cape Town weather with the rain and a bit of cold coming in, and just generally overcast.
And this is a serious question. You know, we've been moaning about load shedding for 4 years now, and maybe even a bit longer. It's probably been about 9 years, actually, when you think about it. But what do you do? What are your options? I mean, I know our friend Brett from the gas company always says, well, you know, gas is still an option if you need gas heaters and all that kind of thing, gas for cooking. But what do you do to keep warm in winter besides dress warmly and have blankets? And maybe if you have fireplaces to actually burn wood and stuff. But what do you do otherwise? Do people just like not move around? Do they make a lot of tea and coffee? How do you keep warm?
You know, us Africans, we've got our blankets, always layers and layers of blankets.
Yeah. Have you done all your winter things yet? Have you put your heaters and electric blankets and all of that shit out? Because I know what you're like. You plan these.
Yeah, I mean, you can see I've got my paneled heater over here in the back, but that only goes on when it's like extra cold and there's no load shedding, because that thing chows up electricity like nothing. But otherwise, I've got a gas heater, electric blanket, hot water bottle, other blankets. But also, remember, I was just sitting watching TV the other night. I could feel the breeze coming through the windows. A lot of our houses aren't built for the cold.
Not at all.
So yeah, I was actually thinking about getting some sort of something to seal the windows with. That might be a better option than spending money on gas and electricity.
I reckon, you know, where all the cold comes in? Under the doors. Because again, we aren't prepared, because winter never really lasts that long here. We don't think about it very much, but we don't have, you know, like double glazing or proper seals on doors and things. I mean, in South Africa, if you have a huge big gap under your door and the wind whistles in through that, most people are like, oh, well, that's just part of life. I don't really think about it very much. There is also that argument, and this is a good one, that Slippery Pickle brings up this morning. Huddled together, body warmth. I know a lot of people who get into relationships in the winter just so they can have someone to warm their bed. Huh?
Yeah, no, look, there's also a reason for having lots of cats.
Mm-hmm. Yes, pets. There we go. Absolutely. As soon as we have a big cold spell, we're going to up a level or 2 of load shedding. Yeah, that's also true. They're predicting a big one this coming weekend. Oh, shit. So listen, just use power sparingly. That's all I can say. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble. I also heard this morning, and this is very exciting information, well, for idiots, and I consider myself one of them. We've got a new mayor in Joburg. Did you know about this? And it's it's another dude from Al Jamaa, which is a party. I don't know how this party ends up making itself the obvious candidate for mayor of Joburg, but this guy's name is, what is it? Kabelo Guamananda or Guamanda.
Guamanda, I think, yeah.
Guamanda. I added an extra Guamanamananda. So Guamanda, I call him Guamanamananda. But here he is. Here's a picture of this dude. I guarantee you've never ever seen him before. And he's now the mayor of Johannesburg. How does this happen? And the other one only lasted like 3 or 4 weeks. Here's this dude. First of all, he looks like he's 12.
He does look very young.
So here's how he became mayor, for those people who are like me, confused about this. He has been elected with 139 votes, while the DA's Mpopalatse and Action SA's Funzi Ngobeni received only 68 and 59 votes respectively. After 2 weeks of Johannesburg being without a mayor, a councillor from a minority party has once again been elected to lead the country's economic hub. So this is obviously because the ANC and the EFF got behind him, along with a patriotic alliance.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we just giving people chances now? It's all a political thing.
Anything but the DA, according to the ANC and the EFF. And this is for those people who are still holding out hope that coalitions are going to be the way forward. I just have to say to you, this is what you'll end up with. This moron on the screen, who I guarantee you has no desire to lead Joburg in any kind of positive or promising way. So just get ready for a whole lot.
We don't know. He may surprise us. I'm trying to hold out a tiny bit of positivity. But I mean, it's a tough job. I certainly wouldn't want it.
Nanda is not going to do damn things. I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen. All right. Nanda, that's his name. I've just told. Listen, you come to this show for the important information, right? You come to this show so you can learn what's happening in the world. You need to know who the new Joburg mayor is? Come and learn from us. Nanda. That's his name. All right, everybody. It's time for us to talk to someone who we love chatting to and we haven't spoken to in ages. It is none other than the She Works Hard for Her Money and well-known author, financial guru, one of South Africa's chief businesswomen who's been running a business which in this country is a damn hard thing to do, telling people where they should put their money, invest their money. She's investing money for people. We started a product with her years ago, and she is none other than Anthea Gardner. Look at her. There she is. Anthea Gardner. How in hell are you?
Hey, Anthea.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Gareth. Hi, Leigh-Ann. So good to see you guys. It's been, 7 years or something since last I was on your show.
Oh, come on. It's not that long, but it's been a while. So, Anthea, I just want to quickly let everybody know, the last time I heard from you, you sent me this voice note, right? This is the recording that you sent me. That was your song. While you were driving around in Cape Town, you sent me a recording of your song. I love
That's
that.
right. It came on the radio. I was driving to a meeting and I was on the highway and I missed my turnoff. So, when you quickly put on your flickers and off you go, despite across 2 lanes, across the highway, off the highway, off ramp. Oh, it was terrible. But I couldn't resist. How can I not send you that song when I hear it? And life's good, hey? How are you guys?
Well, I'm glad life is good because, listen, the world economy is not so great. And I thought we cannot have you on. We're going to catch up with you first, and then we'll talk about some money later. But just to hear your thoughts on what the hell's going on with money and markets and all the rest of it, because it is a weird time to be alive. A lot of the things that you and I used to talk about every week, you remember we would see you every week. We would talk about what was going on, who people were investing in, what people were investing in, what commodities were on the rise, which stock exchanges were looking healthy, which currencies were looking healthy. And it just seems to me like the world then was a lot simpler and made a lot more sense in some ways. You talk about 7 years ago, but I'm just talking about 4 years ago, for heaven's sake. Ever since COVID came along, it looks like the whole landscape has just changed. But you say you're doing well. So give us an update on your life. What's been happening? How's business? How's the surfing? How's the being in the south of France thing, which you used to do all the time?
Okay, so quickly about me, working harder than I've ever worked before. I can't actually believe it. But the markets, the economy, everything's really difficult. But my business is growing nicely. We're well diversified. We offer equity portfolios, balanced portfolios, fixed income portfolios, which are now all the rage. We're about to launch a hedge fund. So things are not terrible.
Wow.
And I was in Cape Town last week. And maybe this is part of it, I was at a conference with, by the way, the Minister of Electricity, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Also, Malcolm Gladwell and the President for dinner. So, maybe I'm just positive because I feel like
with all these important people.
And I feel like not everybody gets the chance to do that, so I should be grateful, I guess. And as bad as things are and as difficult as everything is, there was a lot of positivity kind of around the room last week, Wednesday, at the conference. And I've got some ideas. You know, there was Parag Khanna, he was there. So he's an author and a climate change and geopolitician, I guess they call him. He focuses on geopolitics. And then a woman, Dr. Q, who's a professor at the London School of Economics, and she was telling us about China, and it was so interesting to hear her take about China, because we all think terrible communist, bad human rights, always under regulation, and they're always, you know, changing things and kind of canceling Jack Ma's IPO and all sorts of things. But actually, she had such an interesting, different take on it. So that was interesting. And then the Minister of Electricity, I say this with nervousness, but he was really good. He was really good.
Really? So what did he say? Because we weren't all there, so you've become our conduit to the Minister of Electricity. We've invited him on the show, but of course he hasn't come. So what did he say?
So he's incredibly eloquent. Sputler. He's incredibly eloquent, and he knows his stuff. And the thing that he said, which I loved, is he's not a politician. He's an engineer. And that's his job. His job is to make sure that in the next however long we get rid of load shedding, which is the problem with us at the moment with you know, for the GDP and for economic growth and for all these companies buying solar and spending so much on diesel, blah, 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 you know the story. And he just seems to have a really good handle on what the problem is. And he understands things, I think. And you because he was appointed as a minister, you think he's a politician and that he's going to ramble on and have no idea about economics and what the impact is, but he knows his stuff. That doesn't mean it's all good. So it doesn't mean he has, you know, he can click his fingers and we're rid of load shedding. And one of the things he said, which was in fact a bit disappointing, was that he talks about load shedding being a base effect. So you have to have some sort of base. And the minute the base gets, or you get down to a certain point in production or consumption, then that triggers load shedding. And as you know, every 1,000 megawatts is another stage. And unfortunately, you can't just add renewable energy into the grid and impact the base load. So even though, you know, we've got, in fact, I sit on a renewable energy investment committee, and we've got solar and wind farms in the Eastern Cape. And we're doing a lot of production of electricity, but you can't just add that into the grid, unfortunately, and change the base load. But so at least he understands that. And the problem, of course, is that the grid itself doesn't extend very far outside of kind of the mining areas or around the production or the stations. And so to now extend your grid into areas where renewable energy is being produced, is more efficient, is cost effective, I'm afraid that's a long process. That's an 8-year process, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I hear all of this, but this guy has been, you know, he's been the Minister of Electricity for a couple of weeks now, so let's give him a chance. It's not exactly the easiest job in the world to try and solve. But all I've seen is everything getting a whole lot worse. I mean, this weekend it was absolutely ridiculous. And I know you're not here to speak for the Minister of Electricity, but the economic consequences of all of this are devastating. I mean, South Africa's economy is at a snail's pace, and that's being generous. It's moving so slowly. We've got so little happening. So many businesses have completely failed because they can't even have reliable electricity. How are we meant to interpret this when he's getting up and telling us he knows about base load and all the rest of it? The real problems are not being solved. And Cyril gets up and he talks a lot of nonsense about how, oh no, he's hopeful and he's this and he's that. But aside from his jog on Sea Point every second or third day, I don't see him doing any presidenting. And maybe I'm furious because this is a thing that's making so many of us angry on a daily basis. I just see these politicians talking a lot and doing nothing.
Sure, Gareth. So just on the president, it's funny you say that because we were supposed to send questions ahead of time to the hosts who organized the dinner with the president. And I think when I spoke to people about it, the one thing they said was, can you just ask him to lead? So that's kind of it.
Well,
and then and then on the evening, the questions he got were really about electricity and about the electricity minister, because he appoints a minister, but then doesn't give him a mandate or doesn't tell us what powers he has. You know, that hasn't been defined yet. And honestly, I haven't seen it come through yet. He promised that in the next couple of days, we would all know how much power, in inverted commas, the Minister of Electricity has and what he can do. But I haven't actually seen it come through yet. So maybe it'll come through today, hopefully. And what the answer is, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the circular argument, like round and round we go. Nobody knows where to. But I think you can take confidence from the fact that the electricity minister, and I'm not speaking for him, is an engineer, and that he does understand what needs to be done. Now, whether or not he says, right, I need 3 billion rand to fix the grid and to put renewable energy online, or whether I need that money to fix the power stations, and whether he gets it, I guess, is the question. So yes, you are dependent on the powers that be, you know, the great and good ANC that are leading, and government, and yeah.
Well, they're not. Yeah, they're not doing any of that. But let's stop worrying about. I mean, at least you got to go there, because I'm sure you didn't just sit there and love the idea that you're having dinner with the president. I'm sure you asked some questions as well. I just think that these guys have to have their feet held to the fire, because that's the only thing that's going to keep us warm this winter. I was talking to Leigh-Ann about it earlier. We should maybe burn some politicians, and we'll be able to fire up the stations. All right, let's talk about the world economy for a second, because this is something that you obviously watch on the daily basis, because this is what your business works with. You have to look at where money's flowing in the world. How is America doing, and what is happening with investment generally? Those people who have money, first of all, most of us don't, but those people who have some money, where are they putting it at the moment, Anthea? Where is money going?
Sure. So I know things feel really tough and really difficult at the moment, and there's talk of a recession, and I have no doubt we're going to go into recession, right? So bearing in mind that the academic definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, which it sounds terrible, but you know, it's bearable, right? We can manage, and especially in South Africa, we're not unused to difficult times. But the stock market this year alone, year to date, is up 5%. In the last year, it's up a whopping 17%. So clearly, there is still investment in the South African JSE stock exchange. So you're seeing that happen. I'm afraid the rand, not so exciting. I mean, can you believe that on the 1st of Jan, we were below 17 to the US dollar? This morning, we're 18.39.
Sure.
And it's heartbreaking. So if you're thinking of traveling overseas, think twice.
Forget about it.
Yeah. So we as investors are very cautious about the stock market at the moment. It's very cheap. It's on a price earnings ratio of just over 9 times, which is half the 3-year average of 18. So that's cheap, right? Because you want to buy at the bottom if you like. But and when I say we, I shouldn't. I say I think that there's a good chance that this is a value trap, because and when I say value trap, there's no catalyst to move these shares higher. So we're talking about shares on the JSE. And what's going to drive the shares higher? Because as you know, electricity production, I mean, is just nowhere. In fact, in February, it fell 9%. Consumption fell 8.7%. And we're predicting flat GDP growth for this year. So whether that's 2 quarters of slightly positive 0.1% GDP growth, and maybe 2 quarters of negative 0.2% growth, and then another positive, which is a recession, but for the year, that's flat, right? There's nothing growing in this country. So how do companies grow if people are not being employed and that's another story, unemployment at 33%. Where do these companies get kind of support from? What are consumers buying? Like, what's happening? So that's the difficult part. So yes, I've seen the JSE All Share Index grow nicely, but I think from here it's probably going to be flat. But here's the other thing. Our bonds, our debt, kind of, so you know, companies issue debt and government issues debt.
Sure.
You can buy government debt for 10%, and that's not terrible, right? So sure, our inflation rate is 7.
So I'm going to be an idiot for a second here. Why would anyone buy government debt? What's that about?
Because you get a yield. So government issues paper or issues a bond. So they borrow from you. You buy the money. They pay you 10% yield. Every year they pay you 10%. In fact, they pay you twice a year, but it's 10% for the year.
Okay.
Now, if you think that government is going to default on their debt, then that's a problem. Like you don't want to buy, you don't want to take on their debt. You don't want to lend them money, right?
Okay.
I feel like I want to say that if government defaults on their debt, we've got bigger problems, by the way. And I'm thinking Argentina, Russia debt crisis, there's so many histories littered with it. So you want to buy debt, not only from government, but also from companies who at the same time are doing the same. So they're borrowing money to keep their businesses going. Most businesses have a lot of debt, actually, by the way. I mean, very few of them have. Few of them don't have. And they'll pay you an interest rate. And on average, historically, the interest rate that governments and corporates pay you to lend them money has been lower than the JSE return per annum. But in this environment where there's no return or there's no catalyst for growth, for companies to grow, maybe take your 10%. And then, of course, when you're thinking about investing, there's kind of there are different angles, I guess, to think about it. One is, obviously, you want to become financially independent. 2, you want a decent pension so that when you stop working, you've got some money and you can live nicely. And then 3, you want to beat inflation. And inflation, obviously, as you know, is a problem. So what our last inflation number was, 7.1%. But if you're getting 10%, at least you're beating inflation, right? So you're making money, at least. Because if you're putting that money under your mattress, you're losing 7% per annum. Because the 100 rand that you put under your mattress is worth.
What you're telling us is it's slim pickings, but take what you can get.
Yeah, you've got this way of distilling things, Gareth. But yes, that's exactly right.
I'm sorry. All we've got here is these things for you to eat. You have to. These are the best. Otherwise, it's this or straw. That's what you pretty much.
It's like the salad bar at Spur, where I used to work. You've got your bowls of goodies, but then we used to stuff endives into endives to make it look pretty. There are no bowls anymore. You can just take the decoration, do with it what you can.
Right. Are there any amazing stories of success despite all of this kind of generally negative news? Are there any companies that are just shooting the lights out at the moment? I mean, you mentioned how the JSE is returning a not too bad return. I mean, it's not as good as it could be. We've had better times on the Joburg Stock Exchange. How are the international stock markets doing? And are there any companies that are just performing beyond belief?
So it's US earnings season at the moment, and earnings are not as great as they used to be, but they are still beating consensus expectations, which is interesting. So I don't know if consensus expectations are so low at the moment that everyone's worried about, their projections are so bad, and companies are coming out and saying, oh, actually, look, we're managing. The tech sector, the US tech sector has really been beaten down in the past, 6 months or so. Yeah, so there's a couple of nice ones to pick up there, I would say. But before we go there, actually, there are 2 companies in South Africa that I quite like at the moment, which might interest you. So just bear that in mind. We'll talk about that in a minute. And interest rates are on the increase, right? So if you're not buying companies, then at least think about buying company debt or bonds or fixed income funds, which you can easily do. It's not a one or the other. And maybe now that I think about it, the fact that I'm kind of quite happy where I am is because we do have this diversification. And so we're not forced to buy shares only. We can mix your portfolio up between local and global and equity and fixed income portfolios.
Sure.
And so there's always opportunity. And I know you say like it feels like slim pickings, but it's better than losing everything and starving. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. So,
it's also, it's nice if like a barbarian tribe don't come in and like chop off your hands. But
right.
if they're just burning down your huts, be grateful, everybody.
Wow.
Two South African companies that you think are worth looking at?
So one of our favorite, you and my favorite companies is the Easy Equities platform. We launched those funds many years ago. Kind of, it is what it is. But Easy Equities belongs to a company called Purple Group, and they reported their interim results, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Not great. In fact, dreadful. They reported a loss for the first time in many years. And there is a concern that they are growing too quickly. And so they've expanded into the Philippines, they've expanded into Australia, they've got, I want to say Kenya, where they've just got approval from the regulator. And so the share has really been knocked. I mean, on the day they reported results, the share was down 9%. But we know the company, right? We know the guys who run it. We trust them to do a good job. And yes, they need scale. Of course, they need GDP growth. They need a whole lot of us to be saving and investing rather than struggling to buy food every month.
Sure.
But if they get it right, and they've done this great deal with GCash, which is the largest e-wallet in the Philippines, if they get it right, I think this is a company worth watching. They've gone, they started in South Africa. They did okay in the beginning. They really consume cash. They know how to burn cash. Wow. But also they've expanded quite nicely. And so if they get it right, then I think there's some decent upside there. And then the other company, which kind of got my attention recently, and they're reporting results on the 25th of May, one to look out for is Afrimat. They're debt-free. And how's that for a company in this economic environment?
Oh, wow. How did they do it?
So we'll hear more on the 25th of May.
Okay, very nice. Well, you see, like this is an interesting thing also, and I think people are kind of dumb about this because they look for the companies that are just doing well the whole time. But what you look at is you look for companies that have done well historically, that are managed carefully, that know what they're doing, but that maybe have overextended themselves, so they are currently undervalued, and that's where you go in and buy them.
That's right. That's exactly what we do. And of course you have to try and avoid we have to avoid the value traps, right? That's always the trick.
No. Well, I mean, listen, this is all useful and interesting advice. So are you still doing your triathlons and all of that stuff, Anthea? Because you last time I saw you were running and cycling and swimming and all of this stuff.
No, I've been very naughty. About a year ago, and I think I might have told you this. I had to have disc replacement surgery, so I now have a titanium disc in my neck. So I have a new song, right? Titanium.
Oh yeah.
Titanium.
And I am swimming. I'm not cycling so much. I'm also not excited about the roads in Johannesburg. There've been too many accidents and cyclists being run over. So I'm swimming and running, trying athlete at the moment, but I am getting back into it.
All right. Well, that's very impressive. I mean, Leigh-Ann, she also doesn't like, the reason you don't do any of it, Leigh-Ann, is because you're also worried about people on the roads, right? I mean, that's why you gave up cycling.
Well, I mean, I just have to look at my dad, who's a cyclist, and how many times we've had to scoop him off the pavement. And also he's now got so many other problems, like health problems, even though he was at one point a professional cyclist. So that's why I just don't exercise. I just find it's far too risky.
Cycling especially is very, very risky. Don't do it. That's your message. That's your message to everybody.
Home, be safe.
Yeah, Leigh-Ann wants everybody to know that cycling is extremely dangerous. She has personal experience with this. Anthea's just told you cycling is terrible. So there we go, everybody. If you've learned something this morning, it isn't just about the world economy, growth, markets, business, which companies you might want to invest in or not invest in, but you've also learned that cycling is just pure evil and you can't do it.
This coming from a person who rode a 15K fun ride on a bicycle that had back brakes when I was about 15. That's my limit road experience on bikes. But
That
yeah, I've
was
heard
so
it's
long.
really not good.
That was so long ago that bicycle you've used is now in a museum, isn't it?
I've actually got it outside. I'll send you a picture.
Okay, that I'll need to see. But Anthea, it's really good to catch up with you. And everybody always asks, where is Anthea? We need to talk to Anthea. She's the only one who knows what she's talking about, which is not true. I mean, you just are. You're our trusted and familial companion. I mean, that's how we kind of know you. You've been part of our story for such a long time. We thought about you a lot when we moved, actually.
And it has been great fun. Oh, and congratulations on the move. I drive past your new studios often. I'm going to pop in one day.
Well, you are absolutely invited to, and we expect to see you soon.
Thanks, guys. That was great fun.
All right, Anthea. Lovely to see you, and keep well.
Cheers.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon. There's Anthea Gardner, everybody. She works hard for her money. You can find out more by finding her on social media at Anthea Cartesian, her business called Cartesian Capital. And she's still around and doing what she does. And she's terrific. So there are lots of questions here about all kinds of other things. Careful of sharks and crocodiles. What is that when you cycle? Surely not. I think you mean swimming, because swimming can be very dangerous as well. Hey, Anthea, sorry to hear about your titanium disc in your neck. Well, I mean, Anthea is one of the few people who could afford the titanium disc in her neck. So don't.
Yeah, how much does that trade for?
Exactly. My motorbike started identifying as a bicycle recently. I'm looking forward to a great August this year. Very good, Slippery Pickle. We will be there to support you. Excellent. Excellent.
Very nice.
Mapelo says, I've been cycling for 3 years now and fell off yesterday for the first time on Durban Beach Road. How embarrassing. Oof.
Well, that's a good run that you've done. 3 years without falling.
Guys, here we go. Ryan has just given me some breaking news. I was right again. I mean, if I just had a rant.
Just give us the news.
I wanted to bask in the glory of being correct again. Westlife apparently just announced a tour to South Africa this morning. Another has-been band, which we'll discuss with Lebang tomorrow. Because Lebang was dead keen to go to see the Backstreet Boys. And
Ian,
and now
what was his name? Is it Rowan Keening from Westlife? What was his name? Keating. Ronan Keating.
I don't know. I remember those guys when it was like 2005, 6 or whatever, and they came to South Africa and I met them all. But honestly, I can't remember their names now. All right.
Not far
well,
off.
there we go. There's another has-been band. You see, South Africa is like a magnet for these has-been bands. Right?
When you say nothing at all.
That's right. John Bad
It is
Dog.
Ronan Keating.
Ronan, but he wasn't Westlife. He was
Wasn't
in.
he?
No, man. He was in his own boy band. They were called something else.
I can't tell the difference. I really can't.
No, come on. Now you have to check. Look him up. Ronan
Yes, so Kian Egan.
Yes,
that's who I'm thinking of.
So what was Ronan Keating in? What was his band called? Before he went solo, he was in a boy band as well. When you say nothing.
Boyzone.
Boyzone. There's another one. Watch them come and visit South Africa soon. We are a magnet for these has-been bands, I'm telling you. South Africa's, they're sitting in their kitchens and they're looking at their bank balance going down after how many years of not performing, and they go, you know what we should do, boys? We should go to South Africa. They're still stupid enough to pay us there to do those old songs. So watch, it's going to happen. Anyway, 30 minutes of weight training 4 times a week and your life will change, Leigh-Ann, and a bit of fasting and you go from back to a 10 from a current 8. Well, there we go. John Bad Dog.
Having dated a personal trainer and bodybuilder for much of my youth, I certainly know a lot about weight training. But and as for the fasting, with food costing what it is, I generally do fast for that many hours.
Exactly. For example, Leigh-Ann and I will not be eating. Leigh-Ann and I will not be eating for Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. We will only eat on Thursdays and Fridays from now on. That's how we're going to get into shape. All right, everybody, have a happy day. We will see you tomorrow. Be good and enjoy this brand new week in May, and hopefully keep warm as well, because the weather's definitely changing. We will see you